On Thursday, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta said the U.S. is ready for any necessary military action in Syria. He also called for tougher international pressure on Syrian President Bashar Assad.
We cannot be satisfied with what's going on, and the international community has got to take further steps to make sure that Assad steps down.
With us now is retired Air Force General Richard Myers, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He is a CBS News senior military analyst, and we're pleased to have him with us here. Welcome.
Thanks, Charlie.
So is there a tipping point on this in which the international community will have to do something?
You know, that's a great question. I think that's what people are looking for is, could we get to sanctions? Could we get Russia on board? And there's been, I guess, a lot of effort lately to try to get Russia on board with perhaps using sanctions to force Syria to take steps to perhaps get rid of Assad and his regime. And so that would probably be the tipping point. If it looks like Russia's going to be intransigent on this point, if the UN is ineffectual in that approach, then I think people will look for probably the use of force.
And how would that calculate that with us? I mean, how would they use the force? Would it be support for existing groups? Would it be air power? And what kind of resistance are the Syrians capable of?
I think it'll be a lot more complex than the Libyan case, perhaps even more complex than the Iraq case. Syrians have an industrial-aged army, Cold War sort of army. They've got
supplied by the Russians.
Supplied by the Russians. Great air defenses, reasonable air defenses, chemical weapons for sure, possibly biological weapons. Whether they bring those into play or not, you don't know. And population centers that are pretty concentrated, as opposed to Libya was a little bit more spread out, larger territory. So I think it's a much more difficult military problem, I think, and that's part of what we're hearing on the periphery here. The debate goes on here in Washington. You know, how would you do it, and what would your objective be, and how would you get it done?
And also, do we have any sense of the strength of those Free Syrian forces that are on the ground and what they could do alone if they had the appropriate military
No, I
equipment?
think that would be one of the things that would have to be assessed very carefully. You know, unlike in Libya where we had a sense of that, I don't know that we have that sense in Syria, and that would be critical to what our objectives would be. But you know, as I know probably as well as anybody, it's easy to get into these.
Exactly.
But then what do you do once you're into it? And what sort of instability does it create, not only in Syria, larger civil war, spill over into the borders? You think about the security then of Israel, you think about the stability of Jordan.
You worry about what Iran might do because it's
very much worry about Iran. You know, Syria is pretty much a proxy state, and what Iran might do, not just Iran, but Hezbollah, which Iran sponsors in Lebanon, and then perhaps all the way down to Israel.
Is the idea of Iran's ability to close the Strait of Hormuz real?
You know, my opinion is that they could make noise to do that. They could take steps to do that. They might frustrate shipping for a short period of time, but to close it, I don't think that's a realistic expectation. I think we could, the international community and particularly the United States, we could overcome that.
Listening to you, I hear this notion that the great fear is that with intervention necessary on lots of grounds, might spread into a wider sectarian war in the Middle East and draw in neighbors, and that's the great fear.
I think that's a real possibility, and I think people that are deliberating, you know, military action have to think about that, and how does this affect the rest of the region? Because everybody's got some skin in this game. Saudi Arabia, right. Iran, two enemies to begin with, but they have their favorites in Syria. And you have to think about the King of Jordan, who's has a very delicate balance.
He's in a very fragile place himself.
Yes, he is.
General Myers, thank you. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Charlie.